Ever wonder how a Colombian immigrant became a key political figure in U.S. Senate history? Let's explore Bernie Moreno's journey.
Hey there, it's Leah, feeling excited to dig into today's topic.
And I'm Garrett, equally pumped to dive into this fascinating story. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
Today's topic is Bernie Moreno, the U.S. Senator from Ohio. Okay, here we go from the top. I first heard about Moreno's rapid rise when he went from junior senator to senior senator in like a week. That's so wild. I remember thinking, wait, isn't he the car dealership guy from near Cleveland? I didn't expect a big auto dealer to show up as one of the earliest voices on crypto policy in the Senate. The whole jump from selling Mercedes in North Olmsted to, crafting national policy was a curveball for me, in a good way. It felt like a real-life career plot twist.
Let's set the scene. Bernie Moreno is an American politician and businessman affiliated with the Republican Party. He was born in Bogota, Colombia in 1967, immigrated as a kid, and later became the first Hispanic American senator from Ohio and one of the first two Colombian American U.S. senators alongside Ruben Gallego, another senator with Colombian roots. He has served in the Senate since January 2025. He was sworn in as a junior senator and became senior senator a week later when J.D. Vance resigned to become vice president. That's pretty rare. If you want an analogy for his career jump, think of it as moving from steering wheels to steering policy. The skill of running complex operations in business got redirected toward the machinery of government.
Real talk, his backstory has a lot of texture. He grew up in South Florida after moving from Colombia around age 5. His family of 9 started out in a small condo in Lauderdale by the Sea, then settled in Pompano Beach. His dad was a physician who also held senior roles in the Colombian government, and his mom worked in real estate. At 18, he became a U.S. citizen and renounced his Colombian citizenship. He graduated from the University of Michigan with a bachelor's in business administration. There was a hiccup later with a biography that incorrectly said he had an MBA. His campaign said a staffer made that error. That credential thing pops up in the background of his public profile, but the confirmed degree is the bachelor's.
Career-wise, he started at General Motors with Saturn as an analyst and field consultant, which is basically a role where you analyze dealership performance and support operations in the field. Then, in the early 1990s, he became a general manager at a Saturn store for the Herb Chambers companies up in Massachusetts. That gave him hands-on responsibility for sales targets, staffing, and the everyday flow of a dealership. It's the kind of ground-level experience that can build a very practical management style.
Fast forward to 2005, he moves to Ohio, buys a Mercedes-Benz dealership in North Olmsted near Cleveland, and leads what became the Collection Auto Group. By 2016, he owned more than a dozen dealerships, mostly in Ohio, and he did more than sell cars. He connected to civic spaces, too. In 2018, he helped launch the Sales Center for Excellence at Cleveland State University, and in 2019, Cleveland Magazine inducted him into the Cleveland Business Hall of Fame. He also joined the Metro Health Systems Board in 2019, which is a significant public health institution in Northeast Ohio, but he resigned in early 2021 to focus on pursuing elected office.
Then comes the tech pivot. In 2019, he founded Onum, a blockchain company. Blockchain, in simple terms, is a shared digital ledger. Picture a spreadsheet that many people can see and verify, designed so entries are very hard to tamper with. Around that time, he started selling multiple dealerships to focus on the new venture. That move put him within the digital assets ecosystem. Later on, in the Senate, he would sit on the Banking Committee's subcommittee on digital assets, which fits that background.
Politically, the timeline gets busy. He jumped into the 2022 Senate race to replace Rob Portman, but dropped out in early 2022 after meeting with Donald Trump. In 2023, he ran again for the 2024 seat. He positioned himself as the Trump-aligned contender. Trump endorsed him in December 2023. Meanwhile, there were business legal clouds in the background. In 2023, he settled over a dozen wage theft lawsuits and agreed to pay more than $400,000 to two former employees. A state judge rebuked him for shredding documents that might have been relevant. The settlements didn't include admissions of liability, and his campaign framed those as legacy business disputes. Still, it was part of the conversation during the campaign.
On the primary front, in March 2024, he defeated Matt Dolan and Frank LaRose. Then came the general election against Sherrod Brown, who's a longtime Democratic senator from Ohio. The crypto industry spent more than $40 million supporting Moreno in 2024. Brown was seen as adversarial to crypto, so digital asset policy became a real flashpoint. Moreno won the general, which is a notable flip given Brown's history in the state.
His issue positions have shifted over time. On guns, he once questioned why someone would need a gun with 100 bullets. By 2024, a spokesperson said that no longer reflected his view. On immigration, back in 2016, he supported a pathway to citizenship and talked about helping undocumented immigrants come out of the shadows. Later, he endorsed a border wall, deploying the military to the border, designating Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which is a label the State Department uses that triggers legal penalties, and ending birthright citizenship. That's the principle that people born in the U.S. are citizens under the 14th Amendment as it's currently interpreted. He supports deportations more broadly, and he introduced the Exclusive Citizenship Act of 2025 to require dual citizens to pick one nationality, which reflects his own story of renouncing Colombian citizenship at 18.
On abortion, he opposed Ohio's 2023 abortion rights referendum and donated $100,000 to that effort. He described himself in 2022 as absolute pro-life with no exceptions. Then by 2024, said he supported exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother, and backed a federal 15-week limit. In the Senate, he voted for legislation to ban federal funding of organizations that perform abortions. Also, he opposed the Right to Contraception Act while saying he supports access to birth control. That bill aimed to federally protect contraception access. On energy, he backs coal, oil, natural gas, and expanded nuclear power. That's about production and grid reliability in his framing.
Foreign policy is another lane. He argued the U.S. shouldn't continue funding for Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian war. For Israel, he supported the goal of defeating Hamas, but opposed additional U.S. funding after the 2023 Hamas attack, saying Israel didn't need more U.S. dollars. And on Latin America, he took a very hard line. In 2025, he wrote a memo for Donald Trump that called for sanctions on Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro. He's a left-leaning leader in Colombia and even supported the U.S. abduction of Nicolás Maduro, who is the authoritarian leader of Venezuela. The memo used AI-generated images of both men in prison uniforms, which was, provocative.
As we mentioned earlier, he was sworn in January 2025 and became senior senator a week later when J.D. Vance resigned to prepare for the vice presidency. Seniority can shape your clout. More seniority typically helps with committee influence and floor time. He landed on banking, including that subcommittee on digital assets, plus budget, commerce, and homeland security and governmental affairs. In April 2025, he negotiated a one-year delay in the closure of the Chillicothe paper mill with HIG Capital, which he framed as a jobs-first intervention. And in December 2025, he introduced the Exclusive Citizenship Act of 2025, filed as S-3283, to require dual citizens to renounce their non-U.S. citizenship. That's a significant departure from current tolerance of dual nationality.
Here's another twist. His relationship to Donald Trump changed a lot. In 2016, he called Trump a lunatic and even compared some behavior to Adolf Hitler. In 2019, he said there was no scenario in which he would support Trump. Later, he embraced Trump's endorsement in 2024 and said he wore it with honor. Same on the 2020 election. He initially criticized people denying the results. Then in 2021 said the election was stolen. And then there's a bipartisan curveball. In 2026, he and Elizabeth Warren, who's a Democratic senator from Massachusetts, co-authored a New York Times op-ed about lifting or eliminating the Social Security payroll tax cap, which is the limit on income subject to Social Security taxes. That move suggested he could be pragmatic on fiscal issues, even while staying very conservative on others.
He also made a comment in 2023 about reparations that stood out. He suggested reparations should be paid to descendants of Union soldiers who died in the Civil War. That reframed the debate in a way that's unusual for a Republican candidate. Personal life snapshot 2. He married Bridget Brickley in 1989. They have 4 children, and they live in Westlake, Ohio. His daughter Emily married Congressman Max Miller. He filed for divorce in August 2024. And Moreno has family ties to prominent Colombians. His brother, Luis Alberto Moreno, is a former Colombian ambassador to the U.S. and a World Economic Forum trustee, and his cousin, Lina Moreno de Uribe, is a former First Lady of Colombia.
All right, let's get to the heart of a disputed episode that made headlines. In March 2024, the Associated Press reported that an Adult Friend Finder account, Adult Friend Finder being an adult-oriented dating and social networking site, was created in 2008 using Moreno's email, and it sought men for one-on-one encounters. A former intern, via a statement from Moreno's lawyer, said it was an aborted prank. The AP said the profile listed Moreno's birth date and was tied by geolocation to an area in Fort Lauderdale where his parents owned a place. Moreno's campaign denied he used the account. So this remains disputed. There's no court finding here, just competing claims and circumstantial details.
Why does something like that matter politically? Voters often evaluate trust and judgment, so even a disputed claim can influence perceptions. In this case, the timing was during a heated race, which can magnify everything. But the end result is also a data point. Despite the story, he won the primary and then the general. So you could argue that many voters either discounted it as unproven or didn't see it as central to the job.
I hear that, but I think patterns matter too. When you add the disputed account to the credential confusion about an MBA and the wage theft settlements, even without admissions of liability, some people might feel there's a consistency question. Is this a cluster of unrelated coincidences, or does it say something about oversight and judgment? I'm not saying what the answer is, just that it's reasonable for people to ask that question.
Totally fair. And it's also fair to separate verified facts from allegations. The credential issue was corrected and attributed to a staffer error. The wage cases were settled, which legally closes the matters without findings of wrongdoing, and the Adult Friend Finder thing remains disputed. Politically, candidates get tested under pressure, and different voters weigh these inputs differently. Some prioritize policy alignment or results, like the paper mill delay or an energy plan, over unresolved controversies.
So if we're asking impact, I'd say the controversy probably hardened opinions rather than changed them. Those already skeptical found a new talking point. Those supportive saw it as a smear or a side issue since, no proof of use was presented. And the middle likely looked for corroboration that never quite arrived. It's one of those political Rorschach tests. People see what fits their mental picture.
Speaking of pictures, here's a culture snapshot. In 2014, his business sponsored the Gay Games hosted by Cleveland and Akron. And in 2016, he credited the TV series Modern Family, basically a mainstream sitcom featuring a blended, inclusive family, for shifting public perceptions on same-sex marriage. That's interesting when you pair it with his 2024 campaign rhetoric, criticizing what he called a radical trans agenda. It shows how positions and emphasis can change with time and political context.
What a twist, right? Early public support for LGBTQ events and cultural acceptance, then later a much tougher posture. I'm curious why those shifts happen. Is it the primary electorate's incentives, personal evolution, or strategy? Probably a mix. It's a reminder that public records are like timelines. What's true in 2014 can be reframed by 2024 messaging without erasing the earlier actions.
All right, let's imagine a different path. What if J.D. Vance hadn't resigned in January 2025? Moreno would have remained the junior senator. Seniority matters in the Senate. It can affect committee clout, staff resources, and how often you get floor time. As junior, he might have had a slower lift on influence, maybe less leverage in early negotiations, like that Chillicothe paper mill delay.
I could see that. If he stayed junior, maybe the banking committee spotlight, especially on the subcommittee on digital assets, still happens. But the microphone is a bit farther away. That could delay his ability to set the tone on crypto and digital identity issues. And it might have nudged his priorities toward building alliances longer before pushing big-ticket items like the Exclusive Citizenship Act. Sometimes, not being in the senior seat means more behind-the-scenes work before the marquee bills get airtime.
Yeah, and on bipartisan moves, like the 2026 Social Security payroll tax cap idea with Elizabeth Warren, maybe the timeline shifts. Quick definition here. The payroll tax cap is the income ceiling for Social Security taxes. Earnings above it aren't taxed for Social Security. If he'd had less early clout, I could imagine that cross-aisle project taking longer to mature or getting less immediate attention. Seniority doesn't change your ideas, but it can change how fast others have to respond to them.
And on immigration, his proposals, like ending birthright citizenship or designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, might still be there, but as a junior member, he could have been more in the role of coalition builder than headline driver. Same with energy. Supporting coal, oil, gas, and nuclear probably remains central, but rolling out that agenda could be slower without that early seniority prestige. It's like being a first chair versus second chair in an orchestra. The music is written either way, but who cues the tempo changes matters. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Stay curious, and we'll catch you next time on Laid Back Learning.